Chapter 6: Impact of Science and Technology on Society. Scientific revolution affects world change. According to Karl Marx, the philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The real task is to change. In early intellectual pursuit, aimed to gaining knowledge was surprisingly very unscientific. Truth was based on the authority rather than on observation and experimentation. That attitude is evident in the work of early scholars, who viewed science as a passive endeavor that involved long hours of library work. They spent a great amount of time trying to interpret work written by acknowledged authorities in science such as Aristotle and St. Thomas Aquinas. Pursuits of knowledge was considered to be part of saintly ideals. Science learning was largely confined to monks and clergy, who later on established universities. The importance given to theology and literature can be explained by the fact that their concern was to understand man's relationship with his natural world. The teaching of Saint Augustine epitomized the type of intellectual pursuit of medieval minds as reflective in the passage below. Whoever can measure the heavens, number the stars, and balance the elements is no more pleasing to God than who cannot. Scientific knowledge was more likely to encourage pride than lead to God. Salvation was the goal, not material progress. Scientific was not only superfluous to that aim but might even dangerous, according to Brown 1986. The idea of science for progress was yet to hold ground. Practical utility of knowledge for the benefit of society was yet to take center stage. Progress was seen to emanate from literary wisdom. According to Brown 1986, enumerated some of the factors and conditions for science to be value of the society. A strong social motive to pursue science. Better scientific methods and tools. Freedom from the constraint of scholastic tradition. Ability of scientists to associate among themselves and make contact with the practical world of arts and craft. Ability of scientists to ask the right question about nature that can be answered through observation, experimental, and mathematical analysis is rather than metaphysical philosophy. From theory to practice, we have seen how science's practical utility was eventually advanced and recognized. Francis Bacon, the leading proponent of the utilitarianism, criticized and deplored the nature and the role science during his time. His advocacy on the role of science as a key to progress is embodied in his work, Novum Organum. This work described a utopian society created through a methodical application of science. Despite the flaws in Bacon's inductive scientific method, his legacy is sprung from his crucial role in influencing the scientific revolution through his courage, adherence to the utilitarian character of scientific and consequently technological development. The advent of the Industrial Revolution is considered to be the actualization of Bacon's ideas. Let us try to concretize the principle of utility by citing early examples of scientific knowledge employed for practical use. Number 1 is J. Watt's invention of the condensing steam engine, considered to be a prime mover of transport and industrial, was made possible by the concept of latent heat discovered by J. Bloch. Next is London's synthetic dye industry came from the accident discovery of aniline dye magenta by W. Perkins as he tried to synthesize quinine. And electrical industry owes much the pioneering works of A. Volta, who invented electrical batteries, and H. C. Oersted, who discovered the magnetic field produced by an electric current. and telegraph system all over the world also came from practical application of oyster discovery. And the last is the dynamo alternator and transformer from the works of M. Faraday were based on interrelated concept of motion, magnetism, and electricity. Inequality and inevitable consequences of change. Some cynics attribute ecological deterioration, economic slavery, widespread poverty, and other ills of the present technological world to the development gains in the research and development system of wealthy countries. The world is divided between countries with developed and underdeveloped technologies. The Industrial Revolution was not a global phenomenon. The evolution of modern science that participated in industrialization was concentrated in Western countries. Expectedly, they eventually reaped the gains of their quest for light and their search for fruit. Their initial harvest provided them with much needed capital investment to pursue even greater development to meet the demands and needs to their ever increasing complex societies. The economic progress that allowed them to increase research and development allocation and develop sophisticated and research and development facilities with highly trained staff easily endowed them with political and economic superiority. As a result, the world is divided between countries with developed and underdeveloped technologies. The industrialization of Western countries caused too much strain on their limited natural resources. This forced them to launch expeditions in search of new sources of raw materials to sustain their economic process. Thus, the era of colonialism began. Scientifically, interior countries lent themselves to blatant exploitation by these world powers. Social, political, and economic impact of science and technology. The birth and evolution of science and parallel evolution of new economic system have been a gradual process. It suffered serious attacks from political, religious, and even intellectual camps of the status quo. Transformation started around 13th century in Italy. It took 6 more centuries before it effectively spread over Europe. The Middle Ages were characterized by a feudal economy whose mode of production was through forced services. The period from 1450 to 1690 saw the trump of bourgeois and capitalist made of production. It was characterized by an economy that used money, payment for the production, and sale of commodities supported by improved technologies and better transport system. According to Bernal, 1971, called this combined teaching economic and scientific revolution a unique social phenomenon. Accordingly, its ultimate importance is greater than discovery of agriculture, which is responsible for the birth of human civilization, since science contained itself the indefinite possibilities of progress. Experimental science and capitalism. Economic factors was the dominant force in the rise of capitalism, and experimental science economics need justify the improvement of new technologies and expose the inability of classical science. Its success, the practical utility made the Industrial Revolution possible. Science and technology found a secure and firm place in the productive aspect of society. In fact, this particular achievement was far greater than political and economic gains of the time. A history now tells us capitalism is just a transitory stage in economic development, while science is humanity's permanent acquisition. Capitalism was responsible for the development of science. However, this development that was responsible for the demise of capitalism. The actual of scientific revolution leading the process of transformation from feudal to the capital economy can be divided into three phases. The first one is Renaissance 1440 to 1540. And the second one is War Religion 1540 to 1650. And the last one is Restoration 1650 to 1690. Alternative social, political, and economic order. The era of capitalism as dominant economic system reached its final stage prior to the First World War. Arising from inner conflicts of capitalism, a new economic system emerged. Russia set the stage of an alternative economic system with a different mode of resource utilization. Socialism thus slow gained ground as China, Cuba, and other Eastern European countries followed suit. As socialism lagged behind in economic and technological development, the vastly expanding of technology and market of the West led to monopoly and imperialism, replacing the capitalist pattern of economy lacked by colonialism. Science and technology for social and economic emancipation. We have seen how science and technology changed the world. It is unfortunate that the material benefits are not being enjoyed by all of humanity. As envisioned by Bacon, on the contrary, the majority of the world's population is still mired in misery. Widespread poverty, famine, unemployment, social unrest, and many other imaginable human adversities characterize the living condition in many underdeveloped countries.